I moved to Cardiff when I was 16 and started having singing lessons, and that's where I thought, oh, maybe I could have a career in musical theatre. But it wasn't until I actually won a scholarship and went to college that I realized I could actually do that for a living. And I was very happy once I graduated and was doing theatre. And I think there were points in the first 10 years of my musical theatre career where I wanted to be seen for maybe a TV series or a soap or a commercial, but never film. Film was like in a different place. That wasn't for me. So the fact that it did happen is still very bizarre to me that it happened at 30 years old, after I'd had a 10-year career. I didn't know anything about film acting. I hadn't really done, I didn't go to RADA, I didn't go to a drama college. I went to a musical theatre college, so I'd learned my acting from, through music and all the other stuff. So I had to basically just watch and learn very, very quickly. The first thing I realized was that nobody talks loud. Nobody's projecting anything, and in fact, most of the time, some of the scenes I did with Liam Neeson and Ralph Fiennes, I couldn't even hear most of what they said, which was really bizarre. And then realizing they were mic'd up, and that they could speak very naturally, and I learned that one very quickly.
Another A-list director, Catherine Bigelow, who you just mentioned, hires you for Detroit in perhaps not the most obvious role for you as a redneck, racist, bully boy cop. First of all, how much of a gift or a challenge is it as an actor to play such the opposite of yourself, a character, I presume, with such psychopathic tendencies, you can't relate to him in any way?
I've played less than likable characters before, but I think it was virtually impossible to find an entry point into this character because there was nothing that I could really relate to. There was no element of his psychological makeup or personality that I recognized in myself, and there was much less that I could respect. Even when I've played less than likable characters, I've been able to identify something, and I think you hear a lot of actors, and understandably so, talk about the need to sort of respect their character. I think the second I kind of over-distilled the racist rhetoric down to it being a kind of self-righteous ignorance, because that's effectively what it is to me. I mean, racist people are wildly misguided and some of the most misinformed human beings on planet Earth. The second I realized that my character thinks he's right, wholeheartedly, and the thought that he might be entirely wrong does not even cross his mind, I was onto something.
I had to audition for this one really hard, actually.
Yeah?
And it's funny when your resume kind of works against you and you're like, wait a minute, this is, you become an obvious choice. And then I went and did a 6-hour audition just before I went to shoot. I was prepping for this film called The Man Who Knew Infinity.
Right, with
and
Jeremy
I've been working on this Indian accent for a long time. And then they call me and say, Garth wants to meet you next week. And I'm like, ah! And he's that kind of director that slowly breaks you down piece for piece and then builds you back together again. As soon as I got the role, he said, look, I want you to come in to a performance space that you've never been before. We don't want to see that kid from Slumdog. We want you to grow up. So it was 8 months. I called up my manager and said, don't send me anything for the next 8 months. I want to fully commit every fiber of my being to getting this journey right, because I don't get roles like this. It was 8 months of the physical training, the accent and all that. And then I went to India 3 weeks before we started filming. And that was when I started to travel the trains. And I would watch the landscape change. And I basically was doing a pilgrimage as a character and trying to trace those footsteps. I wrote diaries, I went to the orphanages, and Garth would give me these very strange exercises like staring in front of a mirror for an hour. And
what does that do? What does that do?
Yeah, you feel like an idiot.
Aren't you curious what that's like?
It's strange because the first 2 minutes is excruciating because you're used to combing your hair or popping a pimple or doing something, and then all of a sudden you find this stillness and you just look at yourself. And then something crazy happened where I started talking to myself, I started crying, and then I just couldn't recognize the person in that mirror. I saw my father for a second, then my mother, and I went to set visibly shaken the next day. I was like, Garth, what the hell? I'm a fake, I'm a fraud, I don't know who I am. And he's like, that's the point. you know, this is just a shell, but your soul is ever changing.
When I had completed drama school training in university, this professor gave the end of year assessment of what he thought your career prospects were as professionally as possible. And he said, you look too weird to really make it as an actor, in my opinion. He said, you've shown real talent as a director and a writer. I think that is going to be the path of your career. So because I respected him and admired him, I thought, well, that is maybe what is going to happen. So when I finally got, the first movie role that I ever got in 1986, playing Withnail in Withnail and I, all of his advice came to haunt me in that every single review that I remember reading talked about the fact that I had lantern-jawed, tombstone-featured, sepulchral, bucket face. It was concentrated on what I looked like, and I thought, oh, that's exactly what the professor told me. What he got wrong, mercifully for me, is that I have had and continue to have a career as a paid actor.
Does it ever get competitive?
No. I have no sense of competition with other actors. My competition is with myself. All I'm ever doing is trying to be better than I was the last time. I mean, I admire other actors. I work with great actors, and I really love working with. It's a very funny thing. I can't work with bad actors. It really, because I'm looking at them and I always forget my lines. I go, you should have said that. You should have done that way. And I suddenly become interested in how bad they are. And I forget what I'm supposed to say.
I read somewhere that around the time of this movie, Minghella said about you something like, your greatest obstacle as an actor was your looks, by which he meant, I think, that he worried that you could be typecast only as a leading man, and that people would not know what a very good actor you are, besides being a very good-looking one. Have you had to struggle to get out from underneath that, or was it?
It's a very uncomfortable and odd conversation to have in a way, because by discussing it, it's like confirming that I think I'm this incredibly good-looking man. You know what I mean? Although I have to say, looking at that, which I can now at the age of 43, I was very pretty. I mean, I would also add that the thing with looks in an acting career is that they, I don't know. There are unconventional looking actors who have fantastic careers because they're unconventional looking. So it's not always a given that, people think you're good looking, therefore you're going to have this wonderful career or not get offered. I think in the end you're found out, and it's therefore what you choose to do and what you deliver. And sure, there was a time when, I think turning down that part initially was a perfect example of this. There was a time early on when I thought, I should only do character roles. I should only do really odd, ugly people, so that everyone takes me seriously. And then, of course, you realise that you're kind of, you're cutting your own Achilles heel. Then it's like just get on with it and see what comes your way. But equally, choose wisely.